Come in.
Sir, with your permission, I would like to present this report to you.
This is a waste of time. It's a garbage can. Even Myanmar is better than this.
This dialogue was mentioned in a report to the United States in early 1960. Years later, the South Korean economy is the 11th largest in the world and the 4th largest in Asia. World-renowned companies such as Samsung, LG, Hyundai, Kia Motors are all products of this country's success story. Samsung alone generated $7.52 billion in revenue in 2024. In short, Samsung's economy is more than the total GDP of many middle-income countries. South Korea's total GDP has reached $1.71 trillion, and GDP per capita has reached $33,127 US. In short, the South Korean economy may have looked like a country with the lowest potential in the 1960s, but in that short period of time, it has provided the world with a cautionary success story, proving how it can become a global economic power despite adversity. So how did they do it? We've talked about so many good things, but are there any bad things? If you want to better understand how South Korea was in a bad situation and how it became a global economic power, you have to go back to August 15, 1948. By this time, Korea had been liberated from Japan's colonial rule and divided into North Korea and South Korea. After all these events, South Korea's economy had collapsed, becoming one of the poorest countries in the world. Japan had not been kind to South Korea as it had been to China. Japan had carried out industrialization in Korea, mainly in the northern regions. South Korea therefore remained a largely agricultural economy. The weak industrial infrastructure, the inefficiency of agricultural land, and the high unemployment rate gave South Korea a very bad time. In 1950, the outbreak of the Korean War worsened South Korea's economy and caused its people to face even more difficult times. In 1953, with the end of the Korean War, South Korea's GDP was set at $1.5 billion and GDP per capita at $67. At the time, these figures were considered very low compared to many other countries. At the time, no one could have imagined that South Korea would become such a great economic power. So what are the reasons why South Korea has become one of the most developed countries and in such a short period of time? There are three main reasons. One of the main reasons was the aid that the United States gave after the end of the Second World War. Yes, as you know, in 1948, the Korean Peninsula was divided between the Soviets and the United States. North Korea was under the control of the Soviets, and South Korea was under the control of the United States. South Korea received the most aid from the United States in relation to its economic size. South Korea's geopolitical position was the main reason for the U.S. assistance. On the one hand, the country was nose-to-nose with North Korea, on the other hand with the Soviet Union, and on the other hand with China. Accordingly, the U.S. provided aid to South Korea in order to protect it against communist forces and not to jeopardize its military bases. The U.S. gave South Korea up to $70 billion in aid until 1970. This included military aid, military support, war materiel, and training in the Korean War. So much so that even U.S. soldiers took part in the Korean War. The U.S. not only provided military support, but also military training and strategic planning. After the end of the war, a defense alliance was established between the U.S. and South Korea. The U.S. continued to maintain a military presence in South Korea and provided more financial and economic aid than military aid after the end of the war. To help South Korea's economic development after the war, new jobs were created, roads were rebuilt, and basic factories such as cement and building materials were established. The focus was on sectors such as agriculture, industry, education, and health. In short, you can think of this aid as similar to the Marshall Plan. One of the reasons why South Korea developed so fast was the development plan. When we look at the years 1960 to 1970, even though the U.S. helped, they were not able to make such great progress. After 1970, the economy started to grow rapidly. The U.S. was providing the same aid, but this time South Korea did something different. South Korea's development project was officially launched in the early 1960s under President Park Chung-hee. President Park Chung-hee came to power after a military coup in 1961. President Park Chung-hee's top priority was to implement the development project in South Korea. As difficult as this was, it was the only way to bring the country back to sunny days. In 1962, the first five-year plan came into effect. This development continued until 1990. Now, what did they emphasize in this development? President Park Chung-hee first started to intervene in the chaebols. The government decided which sectors to support, and chaebols were encouraged to produce in those sectors. Chaebols are huge family-owned companies like Samsung, LG, Hyundai. They started to help, guide, and stand behind these companies to make more money for the state. And what did they do? The South Korean government tightly controlled the financial sector, providing cheap, long-term loans to chaebols. These loans often had low interest rates and were used to support large projects. The South Korean government provided many tax breaks to chaebols in order to boost industrial investment. These included tax breaks for export-oriented production, land and property tax exemptions, and tax breaks for research and development activities. Some price had to be paid to realize the development plan. Accordingly, the working class was kept in the background. The low wages given to workers, the opposition to actions such as strikes and groupings, and the dismissal and hiring processes were organized in favor of employers. Thus, workers' rights were less protected. In summary, the picture is as follows. Cheap loans, low interest, long-term loans were provided, tax reductions, exemptions such as corporate tax, export tax, and R&D incentives were offered. Weak labor rights, trade unions were suppressed, and a policy of hiring low-paid workers was implemented. Protection policies, customs walls, and domestic market protection measures against imports. Technology transfer, international cooperation was supported to increase the technological capacity of chaebols. As a result, the system was set up as follows. The state channeled financial support from the U.S. and cheap loans from banks to large family-owned companies called chaebols. Using this capital, the chaebols transferred the profits from export-based sales back to the state. This cycle ensured a continuous flow of capital and economic growth. As a result, the South Korean economy reached growth rates in the range of 7 to 10% in the 1970s, and this process laid the foundation for the economic transformation known as the South Korean miracle. The development plan made investments for the future. These investments were mainly in modern areas, such as technology and innovation, moving from old-type factories to new-type factories, and building an export-oriented economy. As you know, when the Korean peninsula was divided, most of the fertile land fell to the North Korean side. That's why the state started investing in people. Thanks to the education systems that were put in place, South Korea has been able to develop so much in many ways, especially in the field of technology. After the Korean War, the country was in a state of complete devastation. Education was identified as a critical priority in rebuilding the country. U.S. support for the education system was substantial. A mobilization was launched to increase basic educational skills and literacy rates. Primary education was made completely free. By making primary education compulsory in the country, the importance of education was emphasized. There is a saying in South Korea, "Education is everything." Vocational and technical schools were established to train a workforce with specialized skills for industry. Serious attention was paid to training teachers to improve the quality of education. The teaching profession was positioned as a highly respected career in society. After the war, international aid was sought to fill the teacher shortage. This included the USA and other Western countries. Teachers' salaries were increased and working conditions improved so that they could do their jobs better and people would value the profession. This encouraged the most talented people to choose the teaching profession. Teachers were supported in their professional development by providing opportunities for continuing education. So an unfavorable situation allowed the country to achieve success in another way. South Korea's economy today tells more than just a story. It shows how perseverance, hard work, and innovation can raise a country from the ashes. But this story is not over yet. South Korea continues to shape the future with the lessons of the past. A new generation is ready to take over this legacy of sustainable development and technological innovation. And this is a story that can inspire not only South Korea, but the whole world. When a country chooses to stand up, there is nothing it cannot achieve. Yes, every success, every purpose, every story has a price. Maybe they had to sacrifice so much to grow so much in such a short time. For every good thing there is a but. For every beautiful thing there is a shame. So what problems can a country with such a large economy have? Let's look at the other side of the coin. If you remember, South Korea gave a lot of privileges to chaebol family businesses to grow the economy. Yes, this had a very, very big impact on the growth of the economy, but it weakens the dynamism of the market by preventing the growth of small and medium-sized enterprises. So it really weakens the culture of entrepreneurship and innovation. The other bad thing about the state being so attached to the chaebol family companies and giving them privileges is that the economy of the country is based on these companies. So in any bad situation in the future, the state will be affected in a very big way. Perhaps one of South Korea's biggest challenges is its aging population. By 2024, the aging population in South Korea will account for about 18.4% of the total population. This makes South Korea one of the fastest aging countries in the world. Low birth rates and longer life expectancy are contributing to the increase in the aging population. This is a bit controversial, because K-pop boosts South Korea's cultural exports, earning the country billions of dollars. In 2022, the contribution of groups like BTS to the economy was estimated to be around $5 billion. But K-pop culture has lost as much as it has gained. This includes a rigid and exploitative education system, rigid contracts, slave contracts, psychological pressure, and mental health problems. Something needs to be done about this, otherwise many young lives are being ruined for the sake of money. Despite its strong economy, the country has a very high youth unemployment rate. In October 2024, the youth unemployment rate in South Korea was recorded at 7.4%. There are several reasons for this problem. One of them is the very high level of education. People study for years and graduate from good universities. Naturally, in return for this high level of education, they want to work in prestigious companies such as Samsung, LG, and Hyundai. However, the limited quota in such companies causes many young people to remain unemployed. As I said at the beginning, the biggest reason for the high old age rate is the low birth rate. Currently, the birth rate in South Korea is 0.7, which is well below 2.1, which is considered normal. According to the birth rate, South Korea ranks first in the world, and this rate has been decreasing over the years. There are many reasons for this: high education and workload, women tending to work more and build careers in recent years. Housing prices in South Korea are incredibly high, especially in the big cities. For young people, buying a house is a huge financial burden. Accordingly, the low marriage rate has a direct impact on the low birth rate. We have talked about the good and the bad of South Korea. After so much hard, exhausting time, there is one lasting thing in the South Korean people: unhappiness. Yes, the harder a society works, the more unhappy it becomes. Here, we can take the example of cows. If you look at their faces, they all look unhappy because they have one purpose: to give milk. The people of South Korea are like that. Long working hours, huge workloads, responsibility, and so on, which eventually leads to a decrease in birth rates and an increase in deaths. That's all for this video. If you have any questions about the economy, let me know in the comments, and I will be happy to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video to support me. See you.